Greetings builders, Daniel here and welcome to another top 3 video, where every week I choose a topic and show you my 3 favorite builds of it. Today's theme is for those who like to be all over the place. I'm talking about the big AOE builds, and if you want to try any of those you can find links for POBs and complete guides in the video description. And if this video helps you, please leave a thumbs up to support the channel. Thank you very much and let's get into it! The first build of our selection is the huge ultimate sweep slayer with the duelist class. Instead of many small hits like Cyclone, Sweep deals few big hits with an immense area of effect. To visit the pros of this build, I would start with its boss damage. Sweep deals really heavy hits that are capable of killing guardians with only 4 or 5 spins of your sword. I assure you that this is going to make you feel like a boss. This build also has a great clear speed because of the huge area of effect that almost covers the whole screen. Now to visit the cons, I would start with survivability. You need to stay still and very close to enemies, what leaves you in a vulnerable position. I recommend you to always stay a few levels higher than the maps you're in and invest in your survivability. As for budget, this build is cheap. You can get it destroying early in game maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 6 divines. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. For clear speed, I'll give this one 9 out of 10. You deal devastating hits with huge area of effect, and I only took 1 point out because you need to stand still to attack, and the attack speed is not the best. The boss damage is incredible and deserves 10 out of 10. Even though you do just a few hits per second, they are so powerful that you're going to kill guardians with less than 5 attacks. For this survivability, I'll give it 8 out of 10. This build has many defensive layers such as permanent fortify, armor, evasion and spell suppression, but you need to be careful because while attacking you're always standing still and in a vulnerable position. Next we have the incredibly strong Archmage Ice Nova Hierophant with the Templar class. This build stacks as much mana as possible to take advantage of the Archmage support gem that grants up to 19% of your mana as extra lightning damage. The skill of choice was the Transfigured gem Ice Nova of Frostbolts that deals a lot more damage when casted near a Frostbolt. And to make things smoother, we're using the Kitava's helmet to automatically cast the Frostbolts for us. To visit the pros of this build, I would start with its boss damage. All of those overlapping Ice Novas on countless Frostbolts cause bosses to die like simple monsters. The clear speed is awesome as well. With the help of Frostblink of Wintry Blast, we can zoom through maps very fast while casting Ice Novas in all directions. It's just amazing. Now to visit the cons, I'll start saying that this build isn't cheap. It needs a few divine orbs to work properly. Another issue is that you must have extra mana in all pieces of equipment, and that might make the gearing process a little harder. Now talking about the budget, as mentioned before, this build isn't cheap. You need to invest at least 10 divine orbs to make it work. You only need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first and most important is the Kitava's helmet that triggers socketed gems when you use at least 100 mana in one cast. This makes the Frostbolts needed to be casted automatically for a lot smoother clear speed. Next, we also need the Anathema ring that causes our curse limit to be the same as our maximum power charges, in this case 4. For clear speed, I'll give this build 10 out of 10. We're just super fast and our Ice Novas are all over the place the whole time. You won't even have the chance to see the enemies before they get obliterated. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. It's just so many overlapping Ice Novas being casted on countless Frostbolts that the bosses won't even have the chance to survive over than 2 seconds. For this survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. And not only have a big pool of life and energy shield, but also 50% of the damage is taken from mana before life. And as you know, we have a lot of mana on this build. We also hit enemies so many times per second that the instant leech causes your life to be full almost 100% of the time. Finally, in first place we have this amazing Cyclone of Tumult Slayer with the Duelist class. The last PoE expansion brought the Transfigure gems with it. This means an alternative version of Active 2 gems. The Cyclone skill got the Cyclone of Tumult. It is a Cyclone wider and more powerful, but with the downside of being a lot slower. However, with an easy trick we can remove this downside and simply have a Cyclone with 33% more damage and 40% more error effect. To list the pros of this build, I would start with Spear Speed. It's just amazing to be always moving and massacring all the poor enemies on the way. The boss damage is also incredible. Once the build is done, we are going to kill even the big bosses in just a matter of seconds. And above all of that, this build is very simple and easy to put together. Now, to list the cons, I would point a few important issues and I'd like to ask you to pay close attention here. You see, this build has a great survivability once it's done, but when you're leveling your character you need to pace your progression, because you're always very close to enemies. If you're not prepared, you are going to die. So take the extra time to pick up a few more levels before progressing to a high tier content. Another useful tip about your survivability is how to deal with stuns. On this build, you get stun immunity with closer duels, but not everyone can afford them right away. If that's your case, or if you're just having problems with stuns sooner, do this simple trick of picking those evasion nodes and this mastery. Believe me, it helps a lot. As for budget, you can get it destroying early in game maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 115 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 6 divines. You only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Stampede boots that guarantee that your movement speed will always be 150% of its pace. This means that the downside of Cyclone of Tumult will mean absolutely nothing to us. For clear speed, I'll give it 9 out of 10. Cyclone never stops moving and has a huge area of effect, so you can farm your maps without the need to stop for casting or anything like that. It's just awesome and very satisfying. The boss damage is just amazing, deserves 10 out of 10. When this build is done, you're going to easily achieve over 15 million DPS, that is more than enough to destroy bosses in just seconds. Now for the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build achieves over 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and a lot of instant life reach. Now, with the huge area of effect bonus from Cyclone of Tumult, you don't even need to stay very close to enemies on endgame, what gives you even more survivability. And that's it for today, guys. What did you think about those AOE builds? Please take a second to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!